יושב ראש הקורטוריון עוזיה גליל, נשיא הטכניון דוקטור רייס, חברי הפקולטה, מסיימי תואר דוקטור, נשיאות נכבדה, מכובדיי. בראש דבריי אכיר תודה והוקרה לנשיא הטכניון, ליושב ראש הקורטוריון ולהנהלה האקדמית שמצאוני ראוי לתואר הרם והנכבד שהוענק לי היום. על אחת כמה וכמה כאשר מצויה עימי בכפיפה אחת במעמד נעלה זה חבורה נאה כל כך של אנשים המכבדים את התואר שקיבלו לא פחות משהם מתכבדים בו, וברכתי הנאמנה נתונה להם בזה מקרב לב, ברעות, בהערכה ובכבוד. ברכתי נתונה כמו כן מקרב לב לכל הבוגרים המוסמכים, דור נוסף בשרשרת המזהירה של אנשי המדע שיצאו מבין כותלי הטכניון. תפילתי היא כי כולם ימצאו את מקומם הראוי בשדרות התעשייה עתירת הידע בישראל, במחקר המדעי ובפיתוח הטכנולוגי, ולא יצאו לראות בשדות זרים. רצוני לקוות ולהאמין כי נדע לכלכל את צעדינו כדי להעניק להם אפיקים ליצירה, להתקדמות ולהגשמה עצמית, וכי הם עצמם ישאפו לעשות למען הבית והמולדת ולא יעזבו לאחרים חילם. הטכניון העברי בחיפה הוא מוסד ידוע שם ותהילה, ויוקרתו נודעת בעולם המדעי כסדנה מעולה של קדמה ויצירה המצידה את הידע האנושי לאופקים אשר לא נודעו, והצועדת בחזית ההתקדמות המדעית והטכנולוגית בעולם כולו. זהו מוסד ששופעת ממנו אמונה רבה באדם, מקום של שאר רוח ודבקות בערכים תרבותיים, אנושיים וחברתיים נאצלים. מוסד שקבע לעצמו מראשיתו אמות מידה עליונות שאין להתפשר בהן, ולפיכך התוארים שמעניק הטכניון מחייבים מאוד ואינם נקנים בנקל. לפיכך חדור אנוכי הכרה עמוקה בכובד המעמד הזה, גאווה ותודה על היותי נמנה היום עם עמיתים חשובים ויקרים שותפים לתואר הנכבד שהואלתם להעניק לי. ברשותכם מוריי ורבותיי, לפי בקשת המארגנים, למען אורחינו הנכבדים שאינם דוברים את לשוננו, אעבור לשפה האנגלית. I strongly suspect that it is not my technological talents which have prompted the Technion to award me this much appreciated doctorate. As an outsider to the field, I am all the more grateful to be thus linked to Israel's central and profoundly respected Institute of Technology. And I am grateful to the Technion for participating in the process of granting me education by degrees. It is indeed impossible to conceive of the growth of this state and this people without the Technion and its engineers. This technically trained personnel, deeply attached to the country, had a very large share in enabling a neglected and undeveloped area to build a modern infrastructure and modern industries and so absorb millions of people. It is often forgotten that the Technion was this country's very first institution of higher learning. What prescience they had in 1912, those respected German Jewish leaders in their Hilfsverein when they set about establishing the school in the Turkish province of Palestine. To be sure, they were then reinforced by concerned and generous Jews in Russia and the United States. But the Technion must, I think, be seen as intrinsically one of the splendid achievements of the German Jewish community that had reached such heights and was destined to endure hardly more than a quarter of a century more. The founders could hardly have envisaged the broadening of the curriculum to include such then unknown and now essential departments as those of aeronautical engineering, nuclear science, biotechnology. The distance between the pre-World War I curriculum and that of the 60s, 70s and 80s is virtually the distance mankind has traveled into this dazzling, unprecedented age of high technology, space exploration, incredible communications and computerization. It is good, very good, that the Technion, with the help of its friends, keeps pace with the changes and advances. It is also, as far as Israel is concerned, absolutely essential. Without abundant natural resources, we are particularly dependent upon the sophisticated technological capacity and imagination of well-trained scientific personnel. Despite the economic problems the state has been struggling with in the last few years, it has become evident that the infrastructure laid during 4 decades and more can serve as the basis of a modern industrial society. As I invariably point out when discussing our economy, this is a country which can manufacture one of the best main battle tanks in the world, a country which is in the advanced stages of development of one of the most sophisticated supersonic jet fighters in the world, a country which has supplied some 8% of the total world market in nuclear CAT scanners, which have produced every 3rd mammograph used in the United States, a country whose manufactured components are on US spaceships, a country which is one of the 3 leaders in the world, the other 2 are the United States and Japan, in the field of the development of the use of solar energy, which leads in the world in many aspects of agricultural development and irrigation, particularly in arid zones, and which is the leader in the world in cloud seeding, a process which increases our precipitation by some 25%. Such a country is surely capable of moving with the leaders of industry and of advancing towards a sophisticated technological future. As I travel around the country, I see the results in our agriculture and industry of the investment we have made in our vocational and higher education system, including notably the Technion. This has enabled us to make the strides we have made in the fields of biotechnology and genetic engineering, in the application of nuclear techniques to medical instrumentation, in the development of agricultural machinery based on our impressive experience, in many aspects of military sophistication where we have applied the lessons which we have learnt in the battlefield with the inevitable spillover into various technological fields in the civilian market. To generalize thus is, of course, to pass over the many problems that even high technology and science-based industries must face day by day. Theirs is a complicated, highly competitive world, but the will and capacity are there, and they must constantly be reinforced by all the resources of the Technion as a source of advanced research and highly trained manpower. This is no small order for the Technion, but I have confidence in my new alma mater. I am certain that it will continue to play the centrally important historic role that has been its for more than 7 decades. Yet, in concerning ourselves with the growth of technology, we must remember that the swift revolutionary changes it is bringing about represent processes of great social impact on our way of life and on the image of the human being in modern society. We are in the throes of powerful processes which change the realities of life and rapidly create new social and cultural modes which will dramatically revolutionize the future and move us away from the realities we know today. It is difficult, if not impossible, to keep pace with these rapid changes and to develop new concepts which will meet the requirements of a society absorbed in overwhelming and continuing development. Many ideological concepts which spring from the social realities in the 19th century in Europe and which had an enormous and decisive influence on the political and ideological structure in the world are today out-of-date anachronisms. Of course, the basic concepts of social justice, protection of the weak, and commitment to the dignity of man will persist, but the true challenge today is to seek ideas and ideals which will be sufficiently flexible and undogmatic in order to adapt to the changing content of society. One of the basic questions that has to be tackled is that affecting the place of the working man and the relationship between him and the new systems of automation, or in other words, between man and the machine. There is no doubt that the modern industrial revolution, in which the machine replaces man and his skills and technical abilities, pose very serious questions. There is no point, obviously, in trying to swim against the current and to oppose this process, which is an inexorable one. What society must find is answers to the dangers inherent in this process. For while modern technology brings with it great blessings for humanity, it is also liable to become a golem which will turn on its creator. If modern society will not be deployed to give the social answers to the advance of man's condition, his welfare and his place in the new, very confusing reality in the world, the technological revolution may well bring about a future shock which will give rise to a social crisis in our societies which could be catastrophic. I am not qualified to present solutions to this distinguished audience, but the new situation requires deep thought, a new social vision, and a willingness to move away from the formulae of the past. The scientifically and technologically trained man is perhaps the most representative of our age. The man who knows that the world is not finished, that its frontiers are not exhausted, that there are new challenges in the air, in the sea, in the laboratory, and in the hearts and brains of men, makers of modern miracles. I make these remarks because, as President of this country, I am only too aware of the paradoxes which characterize our society. On the one hand, we have great institutions of learning, of which the Technion is a classic example. On the other hand, increased concern and soul-searching as far as the place of the human being in society is concerned. Dangerous polarization on religious issues. Problems created by the existence of two peoples, each with a great historic and cultural background, living side by side in this country. The appearance of insidious philosophies, albeit on the extreme fringes. I believe it is essential to bridge the gap which at times exists between our great centers of learning and the problems besetting the ordinary man in the street in this country, who is confused as he faces the dangers inherent in the rapid changes in society being brought about by the technological revolution. Whether we like it or not, our society is bound to have to face up to the problems posed by these various issues, problems which are complicated by the effects of the technological revolution on our society. While we have achieved wonders of which we can be very proud in this young society of ours, we dare not be passive in the face of the challenges which face us as a people and as a society. For despite our great achievements, and believe me, as one who visits a different corner of this country every week, they are great, very great. One senses at times feelings of frustration about various aspects of our society. Our capacity for self-criticism as a people is most highly developed. This is true of our centers of higher education, as it should be. But it seems to me that the issues which I raised earlier in my remarks, and indeed the many issues which exercise the public at large, should arouse our academic world to greater involvement in addressing itself to such issues. There is a feeling abroad that our students and our faculty tend to focus on matters which affect them, but not with the same vehemence on matters which affect our entire society, of which they are an integral and important part, matters which affect our future, namely their future too. The challenges facing our society are vital and critical. We dare not be passive in the face of such challenges. Our institutes of higher education, faculty and students have a most vital part to play. It is time for them to face up to these challenges. I feel that jointly we must endeavor to confront them and to answer them. Let this be our resolve.